All right, welcome back, everybody, to round two of the Modern 5K here at the NRG Trial in Ohio. My name is Anurag Das. Welcome back. I'm with Julian Kanab, and we are going to look at a pretty cool matchup here. We did see Yawgmoth against Indomitable Creativity in the first feature match, and now we're just running the gauntlet. So now we have, I believe, Don DeLozier against Adam Wasburn-Moses. Don playing Izzet Murktide, Adam on Golgari Yawgmoth. Talk to me about the matchup a little bit. I mean, we're pretty familiar with both of these decks. At this point, Izzet Murktide being the tempo deck of the format, Yawgmoth being the mid-range black-green control combo deck of the format. Julian, who's favored?
I literally can't tell you with any certainty yet. I feel like traditionally the deck that's a little bit more mid-rangey would be Yawgmoth, but should have the upper hand in a matchup like this. On the other hand, there's Murktide, and Murktide can just be completely dumb and run away with any kind of matchup if you get it early on while the opponent is like not prepared for it. But I would be somewhat more on the Yawgmoth side of things. But what do you think, Anurag?
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you too, right? Yawgmoth just has so many tools to just gum up the board, make a lot of cards in the Murktide deck like Ragavan just not very good. Also being able to accelerate mana out and just develop the board state, put Murktide somewhat on the back foot is pretty important. I will say though that Don taking a mulligan to 6 might be a little bit of an issue here, but we'll see how many cards we have in the opening hand after mulligans are resolved. And Adam looks to have kept a full grip here, so let's see how the first few turns play out here. What's important in the first few turns?
Well, from the Yawgmoth side of things, of course, ideally you'd have some kind of acceleration on the first turn. That's just going to speed up your second and third turn all so much. Yawgmoth, not exactly the most exciting thing to put down on the first turn. So right now, I think we're just going to, put a bunch of... Yeah, okay, that works. That works very well. Oh, yeah. Give me that wall of roots. That almost basically makes up for the lack of acceleration in the first turn, because now we get to deploy acceleration and use it right away. Actually, that seems unfair. I'm not even sure why this card isn't banned yet. But yeah, we assembled our army of wolves, and looks like we are not even willing to trade the first wolf to potentially take out the Dragon Rage Channeler. That's surprising to me. I thought like that would be a trade we would be very happy to make. But maybe, and I'm already reading a lot of this, trying to read into this, maybe we want to definitely make sure that the wolf stays around to maybe later on Court of Calling. So like in a scenario where Dawn blocks, and then I don't know, like Dawn is probably not going to take out a young wolf that came back from the graveyard. I'm not sure. Yeah. Maybe that was a point of damage that we could have gotten.
It's a little bit scary for me. If we want to keep our young wolf in play, that might just mean that there's a very scary threat coming around the corner here. But Spell Pierce is going to go into the bin from the Mishra's Bauble, Surveil trigger on the Dragon's Rage Channeler. And here's another Wall of Roots as I think the young wolves come crashing in.
Yeah, and from what I understand, there's no mass removal to be feared in the first game, at least. We can just deploy our entire hand. And from here on out, from Adam's side of the board, it's literally just attack with my creatures and slam down whatever I have, I would guess. I mean, there's some Court of Calling shenanigans where you might do it at the opponent's end step. But from this point onwards, Adam is just going to draw something and smack it to the board. And yeah, Dawn, you got to deal with it. And I mean, I'm always scary of a big Murktide coming down, like I mentioned earlier on, but not yet ready to be deployed, even though the Dragon Rage Channel is probably going to be working overtime to fill up the graveyard.
Yeah, I mean, Adam has one card left in hand here, which is a pretty good sign for Don, because if this is the board state, 3 mana dorks and 2 1/1 young wolves, I think we're actually pretty happy with how much damage we're taking, and may actually get enough time to stabilize, as we see a copy of Brazen Borrower in the hand here. Misty Rainforest getting surveilled in the graveyard. Same with this Fiery Islet. And now consider drawing a copy of Murktide Regent. So maybe we'll be able to turn the corner on this super fast here, as we load our graveyard up with instants and sorceries and put a very scary Halloween spooky Murktide Regent into play.
Yeah, but it looks like Dawn is just dedicated to milling herself. It's just you know what? Let's just put all the cards in the graveyard. I don't want any of those. Yeah, another consider hits the graveyard here. It didn't actually rephrase consider. Isn't it like a new keyword ability by this point?
I think yeah, surveil is now like one of those evergreen phrases, and so yeah, I think if consider did get reprinted, we would see the new text on it. But But yeah. Like at this point, right, you have the Murktide in hand, and the only thing you really want to be doing is loading up that graveyard to facilitate your dragon as much as possible so that you can sort of just like close the game with haste.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there's even a world where we could get a dragon down. Adam is somehow able to deal with it, and then we just make a second dragon. Our graveyard is so big by now. That's a very rare possibility. And then
Right.
Adam would need to rip again. I mean, that's already assuming that we have two Murktides on downside of the board and that Adam has at least one answer. But I would guess something must come out of Adam here. I mean, I always say, think about why your opponent kept the hand. And Adam, I don't know whether Adam kept the hand on what we're seeing on the board right now. Maybe, maybe not. I would think the last card would be pretty good here. And as I say that, he's probably going to just play a land next turn and pass. Let's see.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the way this game is playing right now, and maybe just how the game plays in general, which is probably why we didn't see Dawn deploy the Murktide that she drew, is that there are very few critical key cards in the matchup, and we want to hold up our counters for those cards. So like Court of Calling, Yawgmoth itself, Eldritch Evolution. In game one, those are some of the cards that do matter. We do not want to be caught with our shields down when we have, protective tools like Counterspell to sort of just like save us from, a game-ending threat.
Yeah, what's kind of cool from Adam's side of the board here is he has some pressure, right? And he's ahead in the damage race. And Dawn will be forced to tap a potential blocker like every single turn, just because of the claw. Do we have a proper name for that when you have to attack every single turn? I think that needs to be keyworded as well. So anyway, Adam doesn't even need to necessarily resolve anything here. He can just like sit back and attack, while it's on Dawn to really make something happen here. Otherwise, the damage race is going to go in Adam's favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the balance here is finding the sweet spot of when to deploy the threat, but then also when to, but also while holding up, any sort of defensive measures that we need to make sure that the game doesn't get taken away. And so we'll see what the follow-up play here is. I think Dawn was tempted to cast Dress Down on the end step there, but instead elected not to.
I thought I also saw something like a Petty Theft in Dawn's hand. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Brazen Borrower, another card in the hand there. But that's interesting. Not playing the Dress Down there. Do we have enough mana to cord for something spooky here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we actually do. We have exactly enough mana left open on the end step for cord for Yawgmoth. So very heads up play here by Dawn. Not even choosing to act on Adam's end step.
Yeah, I like that you keep calling it spooky. I think that also should make that an official keyword. Like, this card is spooky. It's not something you want to see. But yeah, from Dawn's side of things, like development wise, it must be pretty frustrating that basically she has wasted her mana for a couple of turns, right? She has like all these reactive spells, but Adam is just sitting there not presenting anything that requires any kind of reaction. Adam is very happy to play the game that we're currently playing. And at some point, I mean, that's the beauty of playing something aggressive against somebody who at least assumes the control role right now. You get to put them into a spot where eventually they have to tap their mana on the main phase. And that's usually where you start raining Hellfire on their board. And we might see that happening starting with this end step even.
Yeah, I was about to mention that there's this delicate balance, and our life total is dropping enough to the point where maybe we just do need to accept that we lose to a certain card, take the risk here, and that's exactly what Dawn does, casting Expressive Iteration, finding that fourth mana, and now we get to play Murktide next turn while holding up Counterspell, and now I think we might be coming closer to stabilizing, and as soon as I say that, Strangleroot Geist in the combat zone.
And Strangleroot Geist resolves. It's another one of those things, right? You feel like Adam must have something bigger, so you feel bad counterspelling the Strangleroot Geist when there's like a Grist coming down right afterwards. On the other hand, you kind of have to do something about the Geist. But yeah, it looks like it just resolved here, and we're taking how much damage is that? Is that 5 damage?
5, yeah. This is a lot. Going down to, I believe we're at 12, so we're going to go to, we're at 9, going down to 4 now. Okay, yeah, so suddenly these creatures are looking quite scary, even though they are just the 1/1s, but you're no stranger to the beatdown plan with
Very much. You know what I'm wondering? Should Adam actually chump block the Dragon Rage Stunner next turn with the Birds of Paradise? Because one scenario where Adam actually loses here is taking 3 damage and then eating 2 bolts to the face.
That might be on the radar for sure. No removal spells have been cast yet this entire game, so you'd have to imagine that Dawn does have some number of those at the disposal. And
Yeah,
I
like
think
we mentioned, right? Yeah, Yawgmoth and stuff, that's not exactly the kind of stuff you want to waste your removal spell on.
Yeah, no, exactly. Unless there's like a situation that does necessitate it, but not going to find that situation here as, yep, finally the Regent does come down.
Most royal of regents. So if Murktide's regent is the regent, who's the actual king? You know how it works? Like a regent is basically filling in for the actual king, because usually like the king or the queen is too young to actually rule. I wonder if there's some Murktide king or queen coming our way in one of the next sets. I'm actually scared.
Modern Horizons 3. Yeah.
The return of the king. Oh my god.
All right, so it looks like the team is coming in here now. Strangleroot Geist being blocked by the Murktide, and it looks like the Dragon's Rage Channeler will trade with the Dryad Arbor. 2 points going to come in. Dawn going down to 2 after this. Is there something crazy like a Geralf's Messenger?
No, but if we are able to remove the Birds of Paradise somehow with the petty theft that I think we saw, is Dawn actually winning this? On the other hand, Dawn is sitting on a fetch land here, and I think the second one is not a fetch land. So there's a very real chance that Dawn actually gets to steal this game if Adam. Wait, Adam is up to 7? Yeah, but 7 we can still beat. Okay, yeah. I think there might be a world where Dawn going down to 1 life, like using all the 19 points of extra life that she has as a resource, might actually win the game here. What is this?
Oh my goodness, Counterspell on Birds of Paradise? What have we come to?
That can only mean one thing and one thing only. Oh,
wow.
Amazing. Like very, very patiently played by Dawn. Like a lot of people would have probably like panicked early on, but Dawn was like, I literally have 19 extra life. It's all cool. Come on.
Yeah, that is actually incredible here. Going using all the resources available, and also just playing very patiently, right? Really respecting the deck, saying, hey, you might have a Yawgmoth, you might have a Cord. I will literally not even play my dress down on your end step because I'm respecting it. And then only when, we realized we didn't have extra turns left in the bank to give up. Like think about it, right? Dawn only played that Expressive Iteration at the last second possible to still be able to win the game at 1 life. So the timing, being able to understand how much pressure you're under, but also being able to understand how much damage you can deal. Expert stuff here. Let's take a look at sideboards, or talk about them at least. In the sideboard here for the Murktide deck, we have 2 Dress Downs, 2 Engineered Explosives, Flusterstorms, Mystical Dispute, Seasoned Pyromancer, Unlicensed Hearst, Blood Moon, Fury, Jace the Mind Sculptor. What cards do you like in this matchup?
Well, I guess Unlicensed Hearst, right, is one of those cards that immediately sticks out because it like turns off all the Undying abilities pretty much. Other than that, I guess Engineered Explosives is one of those mass removal spells that aren't there in the first game that could take out a bunch of the mana dogs in the second game. It doesn't really excite me big time, but if Dawn thinks that she's basically supposed to be the control deck in the second game, then that's probably an auto include. And then you would take out some of your aggressive potential, maybe even something like a Ragavan, right? Being on the draw, I'm not sure whether Ragavan is choice against the Wall of Fruits deck.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. And Engineered Explosives, you're right. You mentioned something about like just clearing the mana dorks. I mean, given that we are a 2-color deck, we don't actually have access to taking something like a Grist off the table, or a Yawgmoth, or like a Geralf's Messenger. We're higher CMC cards like that. But being able to clear the board, stifle that mana development later in the game, turning off cards that could later be sacrificed to either Eldritch Evolution or things like that. I would not be surprised to see the Engineered Explosives come in for that reason. On the other side of the table, though, from the Yawgmoth side, copies of Necromentia, Chalice of the Void, Force of Vigor, Veil of Summer, Unlicensed Hearse, Endurance, Outland Liberator, Thoughtseize, and this is a cool one, Shieldred the Apocalypse.
Shieldred Legacy Vintage All-Star, one of the coolest cards that has been printed in recent times. I could see it coming in here, right? It's just like another card that makes life really hard for Dawn, and it's not that easy to remove unless I guess you have something like an Unholy Heat maybe taking it out. Other than that, I could even also see like Unlicensed Hearts coming in on the side of Adam, just trying to contain the graveyard, making sure that no Murktide Regents hit the board anytime soon. Endurance, another nice one, always ready to ambush any Dragon Rage channelers and also making life harder for Murktide Regent. What else do we see there? I'm not sure about Chalice of the Void. It also turns off some of our stuff, but could be worth it. Eventually, it's going to depend a lot on how much you really want to side out here, right?
Yeah. All right, going into the game here, Young Wolf on turn 1. Not the mana dark you were looking for that you mentioned was very important.
Are we? I'm not seeing anything right now.
All right, welcome back everybody to the stream here. We're going to try and, just as a note to production, we can't really see the screen just yet, but we're going to kick it right back to the feature match area. My name is Anurag Das. I'm here with Julian Kanab, and we're looking at post-board games of Izzet Murktide against Golgari Yawgmoth. And yeah, we saw a pretty exciting game 1 where Don DeLozier stabilized a 1. And Julian, you mentioned this actually in game 1, how there was a point of damage that may have been missed on turn 2 from Adam's side. I wonder if that was what allowed Don to actually stabilize.
Yeah, I'm curious. You brought those up right between the matches, and obviously maybe the games might have played out differently with Dawn being aware of that. But yeah, that's sometimes it's the small things, especially with decks like this, that could make the difference. And as we check out this game, Dawn has an active unlicensed Thirst. That's definitely going to shut off some of the value engine from Adam's side of the board. Adam, on the other hand, is that a Grist? Is that the Planeswalker that we see over there on the top?
Yep, looks like it.
Cool. So both players, once again, on pretty low life. This is typically the spot where we see Murktide Regent coming down and turning games around. So, I mean, if Dawn has that, I would very much expect that to be a thing here.
Yeah, and I'm going to see right now. It looks like the Dragon's Rage Channeler is Delirious. There's a dress down in the graveyard, so it's going to be able to take the Grist to the graveyard, and then, what is this, a post-combat Expressive Iteration?
Yeah, it looks like it. And we're still considering this. This is interesting. So we let the Surveil resolve, and then before the Expressive Iteration resolves, we're going to try to Court of Calling. But Dawn has the spare PS to stop that, and now we're going to look into that Expressive Iteration. There's a Blood Moon. Interesting that Blood Moon came in here. Didn't expect that.
I did not expect that either. I would think against the deck that has, very many mana dorks and also access to Wall of Roots and things like that. I will say one thing about Blood Moon is that even though you're not good against the creatures necessarily that generate mana, from the Murktide side of things, that might mean that Dawn's, outtake or approach to this matchup is to really aggressively go after the mana dorks. But more importantly, it's just these 2-color decks, I have just found historically that even like in Legacy is a great example is Death and Taxes, right? How it's like a 1-color deck, it's just mono white, and yet every Death and Taxes player tends to tell me that the mana base is just so bad, and I'm like, how is that even possible when you only have 1 color? So I wouldn't be surprised to see there be some structural loopholes or weak points to attack with Blood Moon in this kind of matchup, but it is an interesting choice for sure.
I mean, it's gonna make it harder to resolve a Yawgmoth, right? We need 2 black mana. Adam only has a single basic swamp, and the only other sources are creature-based, and I guess something like Court of Calling or Eldritch Revolution. So there's ways for Adam to still get Yawgmoth into play, but it's certainly gonna be a lot more annoying than a Blood Moon, especially if you're gonna bring in some of the mass remover spells like Engineered Explosives that we talked about. So, especially considering that there might be some cards that Dawn will be very happy to take out. Blood Moon could be just like one of those filler cards to round out the matchup.
Speaking of disruptive elements, check out this one. This is Fury pitching Expressive Iteration, basically clearing the entire board here from Adam. And you can see, just, putting down this Verdant Catacombs into play. 1 card left in hand. Dawn is in total control of this second post-board game.
I like this. So this is basically your 7 mana disruption spell. What does it disrupt? It disrupts my opponent. My opponent's ability to play the game, to continue playing the game. That's pretty much what it looks like here. But we have a Court of Calling, and that Court of Calling is going to get a Grist, and that Grist is going to take out the big dragon. We're going to trade our Dryad Arbor for that. Then we're probably going to lose the Grist on the attack. But, I mean, everything we need to do to stay in the game. And Dawn now has a Consider, and it looks to be another land. That's not exactly exciting. Oh, no, it's a Murktide. It's another Murktide, right?
Yeah. So those are going to be pretty big here. And honestly, with 6 counters on the unlicensed Hearse, we're just 1 single lightning bolt away from winning this game.
That's that's a secret second mode of Unlicensed Hearse, right? Sometimes we completely forget about it, but yeah, this card can straight up just win the game in the long run. And this looks like it's light outs for Adam.
Oh yeah,
I'm
with
not
the Murktide
sure.
Regent too, right? Yep, yeah. 6+1 = 7 quick mats. Adam gonna give the handshake there, and Don DeLozier moving up to 2-0. Izzet Murktide taking down Golgari Yawgmoth. So that's pretty exciting. We'll get a word if there's a backup match available that we might be able to see shortly. Yeah, but that's actually kind of insane. You know, the first game, honestly, to me was more of the just like a masterclass of like balancing, you know, what you have available to you. So as a recap, in that game one, Don, for the first like 3 or 4 turns after deploying, you know, Dragon's Rage Channeler, simply didn't cast a single spell. Held up Counterspell, held up Answers, held up any sort of disruptive element that, you know, she possibly could, until almost the exact last second, where if she waited one more turn, she would have died to literal beatdown. We saw Don stabilizing at 1, and I really have to commend, you know, that sort of discipline coming out of the Murktide side of things.
Yeah, very much. I mean, once the matchups get a little more complicated and you have to really milk every card that you have for some extra value, that's just like the stuff that makes a difference. And once you start understanding a matchup, I feel like that gives you so much more agency to really like be comfortable in the spot that you're in, because you've been in the spot many times and you know how it's going to work out over the next couple of turns. And I think that kind of confidence, that really only comes from playing a lot of Magic and playing a lot of matches and specific matchups. That's what I often refer to as doing your homework. So you can be comfortable and know this is my path to victory, and let's walk it down.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will say, though, you know, that turn 2 Young Wolf in game 1 that didn't attack when the Dragon's Rage Channeler was played as a potential blocker, I really don't know if that could have changed the, you know, how that entire match played out, whether we would have a game 3 or not. It's one of those questions where you're just like, I'm sure Adam's going to come back and watch the VOD and just be like, dang, could I have actually stolen that game, you know, before Don was able to stabilize and things like that? But you know, that is just Magic. That is how it is sometimes. I'm sure there was a reason for not attacking there, and those kind of calculations, they matter. They matter a lot.
Yeah. So, Anorak, let me put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
If you had to play a modern tournament tomorrow, a really, really big one, what's your
42.
choice? What's your pick?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would. So I was thinking about this a lot, about like what deck in Modern I would be playing now that Yorion is banned, because before I was seriously considering, um, you know, buying into the 4-color train and things like that. And now it's definitely Underworld Breach. And so we're actually getting word here from production that our backup match, unfortunately, because of the technical issues we ran into earlier, that we may not be able to showcase the backup match, but we'll try to figure that out. Yeah, but I think Underworld Breach is one of those decks that is, it reminds me of KCI in the sense of like how powerful it is. I mean, obviously, you know how strong Underworld Breach is, having played it again in Legacy, right? Like, you know, you're the last person who needs an intro for it, but the fact that it's legal in Modern and lets you, you know, just do such like crazy broken things for ridiculous mana costs, to me is what makes it fundamentally just so absurd, right? Like Breach, Grinding Station, and Mox Amber, that's 4 mana. And I remember back in the day when like the thesis for Modern was like, we don't want 4 mana, 4 turn 4 kills or whatever. And this can do it even faster than that. So it's a good deck.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Yeah.
I think that whole rule kind of went out the window pretty quickly. Remember the first Pro Tour?
Oh my goodness.
Remember Pro Tour Philadelphia 2011?
Blazing Shoal? Yeah.
Yeah, like all the broken stuff in the world. And I think that's, I mean, to me, it had some kind of charm to just see people go at it and break it every which way. And I think that's also part of the nostalgia people have for that. I think there's every once in a while people have some kind of like modern unchained, modern unbanned tournaments. Have you seen some of those where people just like try to relive the madness that has been early Modern?
Yeah, I think I remember watching Aspiring Spike play the Phoenix deck in Canister's no ban list Modern event, and I will say that was quite absurd. I mean, Treasure Cruise, Gitaxian Probe, and Arclight Phoenix seemed like a match made in heaven. I think there was also like copies of like Demi-Lich as well. So that was kind of crazy. But yeah, I am excited. I also got the same vibes when Pioneer first came out a couple of years ago, how they were just like, hey, here's a clean slate. We know we don't want fetch lands, but after that, take it away. And then very quickly, certain cards were banned, like Smuggler's Copter, Veil of Summer, things like that. And so, yeah, I don't know. Exciting stuff. Gonna double check with production just to see what the status is on that backup feature match, whether we will be able to showcase it. Okay. Looks like unfortunately we will not be able to showcase that match. So we're gonna take a quick break here, and we'll be back in a little bit with more modern content here in Ohio at the NRG series.